Hey, Sassy Stuff. I'm Bailey Coates, and I'm here today with Emma Wagner, and we're talking all things Iron Bowl rivalry. Let's go. Emma, it is rivalry week. Let's go.
I know, I'm so excited. This is always the best week in college football because it just means more because you're playing against your biggest rival, and that makes it super fun.
Now, Emma, we have a shared fact about us that we both went to the University of Alabama actually at the same time, which
Yep.
is honestly wild. The fact that the crossovers are truly insane. But if there's one thing that I know both you and I can 1000% discuss with everyone today, it is the intensity of the Iron Bowl. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
are in peak intensity season, especially after last weekend's recent developments.
Oh, yeah, that Oklahoma win was nasty. It was embarrassing in a way. But you know what? We always have the Iron Bowl to look forward to. We always want to win in this big rivalry game, and this game has produced so many incredible moments, like the kick six, like 4th and 31 from last year. So this is such a monumental game for the state of Alabama, and we're excited that it's happening.
And Alabama, as we just talked about before this, we've got a 37% chance to be able to make it into the playoffs now. Better than 31. So we'll take it.
It's better than 31 from a few days ago, for sure. And for Auburn, they need to win this game to be bowl eligible, which would kind of salvage this roller coaster season they've had. And Alabama, they need to win this game, and I think they need to have a more dominating win, maybe winning by at least 2 to 3 scores to potentially make the playoffs this year. I mean, I think if any 9-3 team's gonna make it, it's gonna be Alabama. The CFP and them are like this.
Homies, we love it.
We
Great.
know that from last year when they put us in over Florida State.
So the Iron Bowl first began in 1893 with Alabama and Auburn meeting in neutral territory in Birmingham, Alabama, with Auburn defeating Bama 32-22. The rivalry continued up until 1908 and had a 41-year hiatus after some per diem discussions actually ended up thwarting the timeline for these two teams to meet once more. Whenever they had an opportunity to play against each other again in 1923, Auburn declined, and in 1944, Alabama declined. But in 1948, we finally had a matchup once more between these two powerhouse teams over at Legion Field in Birmingham, Alabama. Alabama did prevail with a 55 to nothing win over the Auburn Tigers, and ever since that game happened, it has truly been a rivalry for the ages.
Let's talk about this game a little bit, Bailey. How are you feeling?
If you had asked me this about maybe 2 weekends ago, I'd have been like feeling great. I think whenever you're a Bama fan, you're going through the first, scenarios of what could happen. You're like, okay, W, W, potential L, W, W. I've been wrong about every single one of them this entire season. And
Yeah.
Auburn had banked as something that was a guaranteed win based upon the consistency and just the overall status of their program. Uh, I'm scared to be completely transparent. I'm as a Bama fan, I'm nervous. As a SEC fan, I'm really excited to watch this game.
Well, you know what? Auburn really showed what they were made of this past weekend after playing A&M. They surged to a 21 to nothing lead early. And then they had to come back and win in a gritty win in 4 overtime. So it shows that this team has what it takes to finish out a game strong despite losing that lead a little bit in that game. And Alabama, they have the motivation. They have to. Like if they want to go to the playoffs, they have to win this game. They also need a lot of help along the way. I think they have to have Georgia win that SEC championship game over Texas or Texas A&M. I even think having Texas beat Texas A&M, that would help them as well. I then looking to the ACC, I think having Miami lose another game or SMU win the ACC championship, as well as Clemson lose to South Carolina this upcoming weekend. I think these are all things that need to happen in order for them to get in there. We could even go as far as saying have Missouri win their last game as well to make that a more impressive win with their record and everything. So a lot of things need to happen in their favor, but this is where it all starts. They have to go in there and they have to play hard and strong. Auburn will always come to the table, like Alabama will always come to the table despite what their season has done and play hard in this rivalry environment. So this is a must win. It was just like last year. I didn't think the Iron Bowl was going to be very difficult at all. And then we get all the way to the 4th and 31. And it was just like, why did it have to be this hard? And that could have killed Alabama's playoff chances last year. It would have killed Alabama's playoff chances last year. So this game means a lot to both programs.
This actually came out about 19 hours ago, so about a day ago. Auburn's DeMarcus Riddick shades Alabama's Ryan Williams and is like, "I'm not going
I
to
saw
lose
that.
my time here at Auburn." And it was so funny. Is like, again, you have the entire rivalry of the two programs. Yes, you have the rivalry of the fan bases. Yes. NIL, I think, is also breeding a whole new level of competition to this, though, too. These games are so pivotal. Yes, for the playoffs. Yes, for the championships. Yes, for everything else. But also, we're talking about players that have contracts on the line based upon how well you perform throughout this season. And if you get into those playoff spots, that's additional screen time. That's additional opportunities for NIL. We're watching these players almost breed a sense, I think, of independence, competitive, almost like this independent sense of competition, though, too, because of this monetary opportunity that they're now being faced with on top of just simply wanting to perform excellently in their programs. It's going to be something to watch. And I think that this is going to be a very intense year for the Iron Bowl. And thank God that they're playing in Bryant Denny Stadium versus Jordan Hare.
Oh yeah, like Nick Saban said when he was covering the Texas A&M game, he was like, "You guys are playing at Jordan O'Hare, and that is a very scary place to play, and weird things happen there, and weird things did happen there last year for Alabama and this year for Texas A&M." So I am very glad as a Bama fan that it's not there. But I do want to look at a couple of these players. Obviously, the QB, Peyton Thorne, he really needs to manage the game effectively and avoid costly mistakes. He did a great job against Texas A&M. So he kind of needs to bring that experience that he had there and do the same thing against Alabama. Now, the Alabama Crimson Tide, they need Jalen Milroe to be on his game. He really struggled against Oklahoma, but he is so capable of these big plays, especially with his legs. But as we saw in the Oklahoma game, if you take his running ability away, he's not the best at reading the defense. He's not the best at throwing in the intermediate game. His deep ball is great, but that's where he struggles, and that's what Oklahoma did to him. That was the same in all of the games that Alabama's lost this year. They really limited Jalen Milroe, and Jalen Milroe kind of looked like a deer in headlights. He looked lost, especially when reading the defense. So if Auburn's capable of doing that as well on their defensive side, then it's going to be a long night for the Alabama Crimson Tide.
We're seeing Bama fans, obviously, when it comes to new head coach after coming in past Nick Saban. It's hard to, I think, fully embrace somebody, but it's the same kind of dramatics that makes the Crimson Tide so excellent, but also so theatrical at the same time of he should be fired. We've lost these games. Blah, 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 blah. Auburn's definitely different. But when we were looking at the records of Hugh Freeze compared to Brian Harsin, they were neck and neck for their both comparing both their times at Auburn and where they were from their wins and their losses. How pivotal do you think this game is for Hugh Freeze and his head coaching position over at the Auburn Tigers?
I mean, personally, I always say give a new coach 3 years. So this would be his second year at Auburn. So I would give him that third year to really do something with the program. I mean, some programs keep their coaches much longer than that, especially if they see growth. Um, so and again, I don't think Auburn fans are as dramatic as Alabama fans with their coaching carousel and everything like that. So I think it would be important for him to win this game, but I also think his win over Texas A&M really made a statement on this season for him. So I think he is probably good if he does drop this game. However, for Kalen DeBoer, if they weren't crying off with your head already, they will be if you lose the Iron Bowl. Um, Again, I think losing 4 games as a first year head coach of a new program, is not the end of the world, but it is for Alabama. So I think this is a must-win game for Caitlin DeBoer. I really, really think it is, because already it's going to be so difficult to even get into the playoffs if they do win this game. But imagine losing to your biggest rival in your first year after losing 3 games already. I think it could be really bad for him. Honestly, I read that someone put a for sale sign in his yard after he lost to Oklahoma. And it would just get so much worse. But again, I think you have to give him an opportunity to what he does well is the transfer portal. He brought in Michael Penix Jr. He got Austin Mack, who is brought with him to Alabama. He also brought a lot of his players to Alabama as well. But what he is so good at is the transfer portal. So give him an opportunity to recruit. He is a people person. He knows how to connect with incoming students or transfer students. So I think give him his 2 more years to see what he does and what he's capable of doing. It is much harder in the SEC, as we have seen all year from every single program. I will say it again. Nick Saban said that you don't get depth from the portal, you get starters from the portal. You get people who are going to be playing right away. So you have to get that depth in high school. And it is so much harder to hold on to those incredible players and have them buy into your system when they think the grass is greener somewhere else. And it may be. Like, look at Isaiah Bond, who went to Texas, and Caleb Downs, who went to Ohio State. They're ranked higher than Alabama right now at this moment in time. They have a much higher chance of winning the national championship. So the grass may have been greener for them. We'll see as the year plays out. But I think for Kalen DeBoer, it would get very nasty if he lost the Iron Bowl. But I still think it would be so important to keep him in this program, because it's like, if not Kalen DeBoer, then who? Like, who do you think is going to revitalize this program? Nick Saban was a huge loss to Alabama. He was so monumental for so long. It's a transition period. We're still mourning our breakup in a way from Nick Saban, and we have to buy into his system just as the players do.
Well, what's interesting is us going back and doing this research regarding the Iron Bowl history. You see these coaches, Bear Bryant, Shug Jordan, that really shape these programs. And I think what fans tend to forget is after these two legendary coaches left at each school, like you were saying, the coaching carousel, both teams have gone through it. Both teams had to figure out this next era, especially as you watch the changes that were happening back in the 1960s and 70s, let alone to how far we are in the 2020s these days. They didn't have to deal with NIL. They didn't have to deal with all these extra teams. They didn't have to deal with so many other pressures that, frankly, a lot of this program morphing has put onto these players. But that's, again, what makes it so exciting to watch. And I think it's just going to be a matter of time for both of these head coaches to get the opportunity to establish their culture, their ideas of excellence, but also, more importantly, get their teams in a really nice, cohesive state where they're acting as one group and not trying to play as two separate, different teams, but most importantly, as individual players. They're activating all together.
No, I love that, and that's so, so true. So I'll leave you with my top 3 things that each program I think has to do in this game. And for Auburn, it's really gonna be controlling the time of possession. You wanna limit Alabama's opportunities, as we've seen all season. And I mean, it's just a fact. You keep the defense on long enough, they get tired, you'll be able to get more done when they're tired. Minimize the penalties, the errors that have plagued their earlier losses, and they really have to generate explosive plays to keep the Alabama's defense off balance. Also, if you can run Peyton Thorne, I think that's a great way to keep the defense off balance. And then with Alabama, it's got to be reestablishing that offensive rhythm with balancing the play calling, which I think in that Oklahoma game, they're like, we're going to run Jalen Milrow. And it didn't work. So let's just run him again. Let's just run him. No, like balance the play calling. We really have to use our running backs. We have to use, you're going to have to force Jalen Milrow to throw a little bit more, even though that's not what he does best. But I think it just needs to be a more balanced attack. Also, pressure Peyton Thorne, who has made mistakes all season when he gets aggressive, when he feels the pressure. So if you can pressure him enough, then good things will swing Bama's way. And then also just maintain composure in this high pressure moment that is typical of rivalry games. I mean, when they played Georgia, I thought they were very composed, especially when Georgia came back. They never faltered. And that is the kind of energy that they need. So let's end on a prediction. And we both know how unpredictable the Iron Bowl is. But for me, I think Alabama's talent and experience gives them the edge, especially because it's at home. I think if I was at Jordan O'Hare, I might be saying something different. And Auburn's emotional momentum might keep it close early, but I think Alabama is just too deep and they should prevail in the second half. They have to prevail if they want and even their slim chance of making the playoffs. So I will say it will be Alabama 31 and Auburn 16.
Ooh, that feels good. Hearing
That
you say
feels
that
good
feels
to me.
actually that feels really, really good. Wow, I'm sitting with that. I'm gonna take some space for that. All jokes aside, I don't disagree with you, Emma. I think again, if we're comparing the seasons overall and we're comparing these two teams based upon their performances throughout this entire year, this really should be a no-brainer for Alabama to come out on top. How much that is, I don't know. I think again that 31-16 feels nice. I would be as bold to even say we might even get up to a 31-24, even maybe even a 28, if they can really continuously act as one cohesive unit, as we saw last week against Texas A&M. Excuse me. And yeah, it's definitely going to be a matchup to say the least.
Well, Bailey, I'm excited for the Iron Bowl. I hope you are. I know your husband is, who went to Auburn, so they're a house divided over there.
Our last two Iron Bowls together were actually in Jordan Hare for the fourth and 31. That was real spicy. And then how could you possibly forget the four overtimes 2 years prior to that?
Oh
So
my gosh.
we've made it through thus far. It's really a good sign.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching our preview of the Iron Bowl. We're excited to watch it. I know you guys should be excited to watch it, as well as the rest of the rivalries that are happening this weekend. Until next time, we'll see you. Follow us on social media and like, comment, and subscribe. Bye bye.